Hi everybody, I'm Jen Phillips. A fan of South Plains politics? This week, it's South Plains DC edition. Our representative in the U.S. House is here in our studio for the first time since election night, when cautious optimism turned into let's get to work in one red wave. So what does that look like, really, now? We're glad you're here.
From the studios of KMAC Television in Lubbock, your local election headquarters. This is Talking Points.
Congressman Jody Arrington making the rounds across the South Plains this week to check in on his district and tout his economic plans. A stop in at the new Leprino Foods facility saying, quote, their investment will bring billions to our local economy for years to come. The president and CEO of Leprino Foods says the Lubbock facility is the company's 10th and most advanced facility with an estimated $10 billion economic impact on the region over the next decade. And then an ag forum over at the FiberMax for agricultural producers and stakeholders to talk about Arrington's work securing emergency disaster relief for farmers in the end-of-year funding bill. That specifically was something House Speaker Mike Johnson made a point to congratulate Arrington on that work. Also part of the conversation, what to expect under the new leadership of USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins and President Donald Trump, and of course, the future of that farm bill. Well, President Trump, speaking of, publicly endorsed Jody Arrington's budget resolution this week. Now, this is separate from the actual budget, but the resolution addresses the budget for this fiscal year, something Arrington and the House Budget Committee are actually still compiling. So there's a budget component and the resolution that goes back and fixes or adjusts things from the last budget, right? The president said, quote, the House and Senate are doing a spectacular job of working together as one unified and unbeatable team. However, unlike the Lindsey Graham version of the very important legislation currently being discussed, the House resolution, that's Arrington's, My Full America First agenda. Everything, not just parts of it.
Which will be the most consequential piece of legislation in the 4 years of the second term of President Trump, and I think the most important piece of legislation in modern history. Tax, energy, spending cuts, reforms of all kinds, healthcare, welfare, and obviously the president needs resources, and we need critical investment in border security and our military readiness.
So this resolution has not passed through the House yet. The congressman said that could take some time, but he is optimistic it will pass. But what does that really look like with this red wave securing both chambers are conservative? The White House is conservative. The Supreme Court, yes, leans conservative. Are they singing Kumbaya in D.C., or is there more to it? Let's ask Mr. Arrington himself. Well, today we talked with someone who, can we call you an old friend of Talking Points now?
Old would be appropriate now that I'm over 50.
Okay, well, there you go. Well, not for your age, but for as long as you've been sitting at this desk. We're glad to have you.
It's great to be
Jody Arrington.
Back home in God's country.
Yeah.
Go West Texas.
Flew in this morning,
yeah.
Which God bless you for staying awake this long. And the last time we spoke was election night. And the last words I heard from you was cautiously optimistic. Wow, such a difference since the last time we spoke. Tell me where your head and your heart are at when you're sitting in D.C. right now.
Well, it is a dream come true for me. We have the trifecta in terms of Republican leadership and basically control of the three-legged governing stool with President Trump and unified congressional Republican leadership.
Yes.
So there's so much more we can do. And after 4 years of the previous administration, it was time to stop, and now it's time to reverse, and in fact hit delete on so much that I think was bad for the country. It was hurting working families, and it was weakening our nation vis-a-vis the rest of the world. So now I'm budget chair with a gavel and a Republican partner in the Senate and a president who will sign a budget resolution, for example, which will be the most consequential piece of legislation in the 4 years of the second term of President Trump, and I think the most important piece of legislation in modern history. Tax, energy, spending cuts, reforms of all kinds, healthcare, welfare, and obviously the president needs resources, and we need critical investment in border security and our military readiness, which is job number one. So I'm living my dream in service to my country and the good people here in West Texas.
And this is something that you've been talking about ever since I've had you on this desk, but I know my predecessors as well. There's a fiscal responsibility attached to it, and there's a lot of change attached. This isn't just a budget, a resolution like you talked about, something completely different in a different direction, or what does that actually look like?
Well, look, it's the previous administration used budget reconciliation, which allows you to bypass the filibuster and only requires a simple majority vote in the Senate. But the last administration and Democrat control of Congress, they used it to usher in the, quote, Inflation Reduction Act, and the unbridled spending that came with it, paying people not to work, expanding health care to people who were making $500,000, and then the green energy subsidies from electric vehicles to green climate corporations, most of which the value was going to go to China because that's where they mined the rare earth minerals, that's where they made much of the component parts. Okay, fast forward, we now can basically pull up by the roots those things that we believe are distorting our energy economy, making cost more burdensome on working families just to fill up their car and go to work, buy groceries, etc. And then locking in low taxes, unleashing prosperity, restoring fiscal responsibility, bending the curve on mandatory spending. All of this in one bill. We got to get it right, and we got to pass it.
Yes.
And we only have a 2-seat majority in the House, so it's going to be a much steeper hill to climb than when the Democrats did it and when we did it during the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act back in 2017.
But it's, you know, we have this red wave. You kind of picture a kumbaya circle, everyone holding hands, like, you know, singing in D.C., and that's what I think a lot of voters were hoping for when they saw this red wave. Talk with me a little bit about some of the ideas that are different. Maybe it's not exactly kumbaya. I mean, we still all represent very different parts of the U.S. here.
I think most Republicans want to lock in low and competitive tax rates for our job creators, and especially on the heels of a cost of living crisis, we want Americans to keep more of their hard-earned money.
Okay.
I think most of us as Republicans want to undo the Green New Deal tax subsidies. I think most of us want to put in place policies that will open up and unleash domestic energy production so we can return to energy dominance. Most of the things on the list are unifying. I will say this, not so much on cutting spending. Not every Republican can lean in or will lean in and exert the political will to cut spending like we need to. And at this point where we're borrowing $6 billion a day, have the highest level of indebtedness surpassing World War II, $1 trillion just to pay the interest on our debt, which is more than we spend on the military, we are at a place where we could do irreparable harm and bankrupt the country. As budget chair, I get to have tremendous influence over that piece, which is very important, not just to me as a father with 3 children. It should be important to every American, because if we have a sovereign debt crisis, we will undermine everything good about this nation. Farm bills, infrastructure, the military, and we will give the keys to China to be the leaders of the free world. And in a new world order, that's unacceptable. So I'm excited about that being a critical component to the reconciliation bill.
Okay, it gives me the heebie-jeebies a little bit, because it is,
should.
that is scary to think about. You know, we here in West Texas like to believe we're our own country, but it turns out it's a much bigger place.
Well, if we ran our country like our farmers and ranchers and families and mom and pop businesses have all kind of run their business, we wouldn't be $36 trillion in the hole. It's immoral to hand the country like that to the next generation. This is our biggest and best opportunity to address that.
Yeah, and you're at the helm of that, which I love that you mentioned Farm Bill, because I know the Speaker of the House even sent us a press release in December talking about how you in particular have really been someone who's rooting for and advocating for farmers and ag spending, all of that. Tell me where that's at right now, because this is your home, but it's hard to walk into DC and say, this is what I need.
Well, we've been preaching the food, fuel, and fiber and food security and energy independence ever since I got there 8 years ago. And the importance for the nation, for our communities, for our families. Everyone has an interest in the ag economy doing well, but it has suffered, self-inflicted mainly from high input cost as part of the 40-year high inflation that we got because of the reckless spending and failed economic policies of the Biden administration. But on top of that, we were experiencing historic drought. Taken together and not having an updated farm bill to sort of reflect the economic realities, raise the safety net so that we stabilize the ag economy, we were sort of hanging in the lurch. And I was able to work with the Speaker, who's my best friend, and we came in together. But I worked with him and others because of my role as budget chairman to find a way to include a $10 billion stopgap measure, because we knew that we'd have a much better farm bill product if we could get all Republican leadership. But we didn't have any more runway left. Banks were nervous. Those who finance and underwrite our producers. So we got the bill done, included it in the end of the year funding. And look, leadership and the opportunities I have for West Texas matter, the relationships matter, and now we've got some runway to get it right and to change structurally the things that need to change for the next 5 years in a farm bill that